May 10th of 2021. This is the Plan Commission meeting, and we do have a quorum. And if you're not speaking, if you could just mute your line, that would be awesome. We appreciate that. And the first item on the agenda would be the approval of the Plan Commission meeting minutes of April 12th. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion by Barman, second by Caravello. Any questions or comments about the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. The minutes carry. Next item is City Council Representative Report. Alderperson Caravello, anything to report?
Simply that at the April 13th council meeting, Ordinance 9 of 2021 was passed. And at the April 27th council meeting, resolutions 54, 55, 56, and 57 were also approved.
All right, thank you. Next item would be the staff report, and that's in your packet. Not a whole lot has changed since the last meeting. Some of the projects that began this spring are underway. They're moving dirt over on Abel Court and out in Kettle Park West. And then Dollar Tree did some landscape work in the last couple of weeks. They have a few things to finish up. And we're working on a few things that'll be on the agenda for tonight. Any questions about the staff report?
Mayor, I do see that the NAFA building out in the Business Park North is being utilized by Second Harvest. Is that right?
Yeah, my understanding is they leased it out for a year, and they've been getting grants from Dane County as part of the CARES money to basically bring in fresh farm food into there to be boxed up and sent out to people in need. So I know there was additional money that the county put toward that program. So hopefully they'll occupy that space for a little while longer until we get through this.
Okay, thanks.
Next item would be a request by Brian Earlywine for approval of the front facade improvements at 173 to 177 West Main Street. And it looks like there's a picture on your screen. And Michael, would you like to introduce it, or would you like Brian to speak to it?
Yeah, I can just it's just a facade improvement. I think includes siding, windows, front door, and there's also a new roof planned. Seems pretty straightforward. I don't know if Brian's there, but
Anything you could tell us about the building?
there we go.
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, Michael nailed it. Just a refresh of the front there. I mean, it's that photo is a not so great attempt by me to Photoshop into existence this gray siding with some black windows and some stone down below. Just kind of beautify the building, make it look a little more presentable.
All right. Any history on the building, Michael?
I know it's not contributing to the historic district, but other than that, I don't have anything else.
All right. And any questions from the commissioners on this one?
This is Todd Barman. I've got a number of questions, but I don't necessarily need to go first. I guess I would. My first question is I didn't get a chance to get up close to the building prior to this meeting. So the siding that is coming off the upper facade, is that currently a vinyl siding or is that a wood siding?
It's a vinyl.
Okay, that's what I thought. So a couple other questions. The hardy siding that's being proposed, can you describe, other than it being gray, can you describe that in a little bit more detail? Because I know the hardy siding comes in smooth or textured, it comes in grooved, it comes in a variety of different forms, but it wasn't clear to me in the proposal or in this image what kind of siding you're proposing.
Sure, it would be the smooth, basically in the same style that's there, just new and updated and in the gray.
All right, and then what color is it? Is the stone that the stone veneer that you proposed for the lower facade, is that as white?
No, it's
Or-
actually the selection is a little grayer. And sorry, I thought I had included the specs on that. Let me see if I can pull up the
Well,
exact.
I've got a picture here, but you know, depending on how it prints, it's always hard to say, but
Sure.
it's more of a gray.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so those are my questions. Now here's my comments. I did a little bit research coming into this because I wanted to make sure that generally, as I thought I remembered, that hardy siding is generally accepted across the historic preservation arena. Even though this is not a historic preservation district, we're trying to keep materials relatively similar. So the hardy siding is good for that. But it needs, I'll stress that it does need to be that smooth version of the hardy siding without the texture. So the hardy plank, and it would have to be the smooth, not something like the cedar mill. Or certainly not something like a beaded cedar mill. So as long as you're going with the smooth of the hardy plank, then I have no problem with the upper facade. But I have, I am not comfortable with the stone veneer that's being proposed for the lower facade, or the style of the residential door that's being proposed. I've worked in communities across the country for years, and most communities will. They're working really hard to get rid of the stone veneer like being proposed down below. It's not similar to any other kind of material that's used within these historic commercial districts. It doesn't match anything within the context of the neighborhood. It's not the style of brick or masonry that you would see on these buildings. So I really think we need to look at a different material for the lower facade below the storefront window, and having the residential door the way it's being proposed here is not how those are typically designed either. But I think my biggest concern there is having it be the natural wood color. I probably would have less issues with it if it was painted. But it's also, I mean, you typically don't see the six panel doors there on the residential doors or the storefront facade. So I really think we need to look at something different for those two features.
All right. Did you want the comment to that, Brian, or would you like to hear from others?
I mean, I guess first of all, the door, the 6-panel door is what's in our current bid with the contractor. We're open to suggestions there. As far as the lower portion, that stone, again, we're trying to beautify the building as best we can here, and I think it goes well with that gray siding that you could see from the picture of a job recently done by that contractor. I guess what would your proposal be in place of that? Because right now we have kind of some ratty wood down there that's just it. Certainly we could paint it, but I don't think it would do justice to the building or to the neighborhood.
Typically on these kinds of buildings, the wood is normally it's not as flat as that. It's got more of a 3-dimension to it. And it can be built out pretty relatively inexpensively with something like a marine plywood that has a little bit more durability than some materials in that context. But having either a wood kick panel or lower storefront, or certainly masonry, but not the kind of masonry that the faux masonry that you're proposing is just not appropriate within this context. Not that I like any kind of faux masonry, because it's faking the material. I mean, it's trying to look like stone and it's not. I'd rather just see a textured wood, you know, a three-dimensional wood kind of design, than I would the faux brick or the faux stonework. But certainly, if you're going to go with something faux, it should look more like the masonry that you see below other storefronts, either on your block or within the neighborhood.
Any comments from other commissioners?
I agree with Todd on all those points, and looking in the photograph of the current face of that building, I actually think that the door that is there at 173 looks more appropriate than the proposed door, or potentially even for an alternative. Again, referring to the photo of the current face, the door that I'm assuming leads to the apartments upstairs of the building next door, which I think is maybe 157, maybe even more of a style or look like that, as opposed to just that. You know, that again, I think would be an easy thing at this point to pick a different door. But yeah, the veneer face, I'm in agreement with Todd that it doesn't seem like it would really fit.
All right. Any other commissioners have any thoughts? And then Brian, I assume that you'll come back for the signage.
Yeah, we don't have anything for the signage right now. We're just trying to make it, again, look nice and presentable for someone to come in and want to put a business there, put something, you know, get some foot traffic downtown.
Okay. Yeah, it might be helpful if we have a conversation about the signage before you order it.
Of course.
You know, so I think that's kind of a separate process, but I was just kind of curious. So you're going to take the canopy off for now?
Yeah, that's the thought. Just kind of get that nice, clean face of the building.
Sure. Okay. All right. One last time for the commissioners. Any questions or comments, or otherwise I'll be looking for a motion on this one. You think you'll be able to have flexibility on the base and then the door then, Brian?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can make something work from what it sounds like.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then if somebody's prepared to make one.
I will move to approve with a mind to looking at the alterations or changes that was mentioned, so that Mr. Barman has mentioned.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right. Thank you. And then you have any questions for us, Brian, before we vote on it? You understand kind of what they'd like to see?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And certainly.
Is this where, Mayor, is
Go
this
ahead,
where
Todd.
discussion might be?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if just visually and material wise, we're talking about some pretty significant changes to the proposal. I don't know if there's a big time constraint here, but it's something I almost would want to see again rather than just, I don't know if verbally, if the submittal, verbally we're saying we're going to stick with wood, or what's being agreed to here? Because for us to approve the motion based on my comments, without knowing what actually is going to be done, I'm just a little uncomfortable with.
What's your schedule looking like, Brian?
I mean, we're trying to get it done as quickly as possible, and we just acquired the property, you know, a couple months ago, and we've kind of wrestled with how we're going to approach this. And it being my first time through this, Michael's been very helpful and kind of helped me get everything in order and everything to you guys and everyone there. Mr. Barman, as far as getting something in your hands that you feel comfortable with, to me, that would be a door that you can approve, and this, if it has to come to the committee, that you know, so be it. And then some sort of masonry is what we'd go with, and something that you would find to be in the nature and in the design of the district would be what I would look for and hope to get approved and installed.
All right, so you're saying that you would agree to put in at least if you're going to go with a faux material on the lower facade, that it would at least look more like brick that's in other places in the district. So is that what you're saying, for one?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. And then the door, you're willing to, I mean, you're going to go with something that's, you want me to look at, or you're just going to go with something that looks a little bit more like some of the neighboring doors?
I would definitely take a look at the neighboring door, and like I said, whoever, if you need to have a look at it before we order it, that's an easy swap out and then make it happen. So.
All right. Well, I'll just, as long as you agree with something that looks painted to start with, and then I would be more than happy to look at some of your choices and give feedback. But I think, you know, since we'll be approving it, you don't necessarily even have to. You won't be in a position where you have to listen to me. But at least if it's painted, and then I'd be more than happy to give my feedback on a couple options on the doors for you if you'd like.
Sure, that'd be great.
All right. And then I'll just toss in one other thing I saw here. Above that same residential door, as I'm looking at this again, that part of where you got the hardy siding going up, it looks, because you took what looked like a kind of a mansard style roof off there, it looks like there's no cap to that part of the building. So, I mean, if you're able to somehow cap that in a color that looks similar to the way you're capping the rest of the building, I think it'll look a lot nicer for you. But that's not necessarily something I would require at this point.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, thanks. That helps.
All right.
Thank you.
And then Michael can send out the contact information after the meeting so you guys can connect if you'd like. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Thanks for being here, Brian.
Thank you all.
All right, next item is a request by Rob Real Estate Brokerage and Builders LLC to rezone the parcel at the west end of Isham Street from SR6 Single Family Residential to TR6 Two Family Residential. And we'll walk through this, and then we do have a need for a public hearing, and then we'll be looking for a recommendation to the council. Who would like to start it out, Rob or Chuck? Or
yeah, I guess I'd be happy to start it out. My name is Chuck Nunn, and I'm a civil engineer working with Rob on the development of this parcel. And we started this a couple months ago. We went through the discussions with some of the city staff on some of the issues. We would like to zone this to TR6 and then extend the Isham Street to 650 feet to the west as part of this development. We have completed the site assessment questionnaire and also the rezoning request, and had a pre-application meeting with the city staff. They indicated some issues that we were able to put forward on a drawing. Things like a temporary cul-de-sac bulb would be required. Also, Jill Weiss requested that we loop the water main from Isham Street up to Chicago, and we've done that. So I guess we're here tonight for the zoning request.
All right. Anything you want to add, Rob?
Not really at this point. I think I kind of painted the picture to several city officials as far as what product we're planning on doing there. Looking at doing some nice for sale products, not rentals. We're looking for to have accessible units that are kind of geared towards elderly folks, not just elderly folks, but people with disabilities that have a need for a home such as this. We have built similar products at 616 Smedahl Street and at 201 Ashbury. If everyone here would kind of like an example of what we're doing or have in the scope for what we like to do at this parcel.
All right. Any initial questions or comments from commissioners before we go to public hearing?
So
I have one.
Go ahead.
I'm concerned. I have concerns regarding this zoning when it comes to terms of cutting off the potential for a green corridor that we have going south, which will continue when the properties to the south start to develop. If you look at the way this is laid out right now, you've got a street and you've got buildings in the way of, there's got to be a passage in there somewhere. Continue that green corridor so we have a trail system.
Yep, that was one of the staff comments that we had, was we needed to provide pedestrian access between the lots 3 and 4. And we did go ahead and do that to provide that pedestrian access to the south.
Why am I not seeing it?
Well, it was actually on a map that was sent in to Michael on Friday. Michael, do you have that map that you can show, or?
Let's see if I can find it here.
All right. While he's looking for it, did you have anything else, Tom?
I can't say anything else until I see where it's actually located to see if it jogs over too far or if it's continuous or what.
Okay. Yeah, we did bring that up, so we'll get that map up in just a moment. Any other commissioners have any questions not related to that trail at this point?
if I could, Mayor, this is Todd.
Sure, go ahead.
So in what we're just reviewing for us is the 6 lots here that are more highlighted in a darker, bolder. And so we're looking at potentially 6 duplexes, so 12 units that would be in this particular area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then could someone remind me what the across Isham there to the north, is that those parcels there, have they already been rezoned or are those still planned neighborhood? I mean, are those zoned for multi-family or are those single family on the other side of Isham?
There are 2 lots over on the other side of Isham that are zoned for 2-family. If you want to pull up the zoning map, you can see them.
I think they're actually single family right now.
Oh, okay.
All right, so everything on the north of what's being drawn here on the screen, those are still zoned single family, even though the lots are small.
Yes.
Is that correct?
So there's only two lots on the north side of that street that are zoned single family. The rest of it's actually City of Stoughton Park, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Okay. So on this map here, where we've got the numbers of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, all of that is owned by the city and is considered park.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, that helps.
All right, and let's go back to Alder Majewski's question then.
This shows the cul-de-sac bulb that exists, that we put a temporary cul-de-sac on the west side of the street. It's kind of hard to see. It's in light green. That's a 50-foot radius. We've talked to the fire chief about what he would need to access his vehicles in there, and he's verbally agreed to 50 feet radius. And it does show in between lots 3 and 4, you can see there the pedestrian access that's shown to provide access to the south.
I'm not seeing anything here on my screen from what you're showing me. Sorry. All I can see is lots 13 through 20 and the proposed water line. You're gonna have to do something better for display because I can't see anything.
You might need to scroll your own screen a little bit. I had to pull mine down to see the lower 6 lots.
Yeah, my screen's not allowing it to do it.
You see where it says in between 3 and 4, it's kind of hard to see. It's a very faint line, but it says 10-foot pedestrian route. It's 5 feet on either side of lots 3 and 4, that faint line. And then you'll see the notation below it there. It says 10 feet pedestrian route with an arrow pointing towards it.
Well, okay, 10 feet is certainly not enough. Sorry. We're trying to get a trail corridor put in. I think we just changed our ordinances in regards to what we want to see for right of way for trails. And 10 feet is certainly not even close to being enough.
This was a comment that Rodney had earlier on in a pre-application staff meeting. We asked him what were some of the issues that he could identify up front, and that was something he said was a 10-foot pedestrian access. How wide would you want to see it?
Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong. Did we just not speak to this?
Well, we're
Not long ago?
in the process of updating the standards. But I don't know if that is complete yet. So, in the newer developments, we're starting from scratch. We certainly are asking for more than that. On these infills, I'm not really sure if we've defined an expectation or not.
I'm not sure you call this an infill. This is on the edge of town. This is not developed land.
This request is just to rezone this piece. They'll have to come back again to plat this. So there'll be further discussions about where, pedestrian routes and easements and things like that go.
Well, I like being upfront about this stuff because nobody wants a surprise down the road. I'm not trying to cause heartburn or anything, but I'm trying to keep in mind what the vision is for development in this community and how we go about developing new parcels of land.
The area south of here is not city, boundary or whatever. It's
at this point,
the own parcel by Rob Postreiser. Rob, can you talk about that a little bit?
I'm sorry, Chuck. I got kind of over blood here with audio. What was that statement?
They're discussing the development of the lots south of the 2-acre parcel that's for rezoning. And I've said that that's a privately owned parcel by you. Can you describe what is going on with that?
Yes, certainly. We're happy to speak to that. So at this juncture, we bought the Tigan Farm as basically a holding. The 2 acres that are currently in the city of Stoughton that we're looking to just rezone tonight is what we have plans for the future. The rest of the property at this juncture, again, is just a holding. It's cropland. We may do some development or some reparceling in the future. but we have no imminent plans for that parcel.
So what we could do is, we could certainly, when we get closer to the plating phase, we can have a conversation with Director Glenn and talk a little bit deeper about that walkway and make sure it aligns with the existing that we have, and then look at the appropriate width. Did you have any other concerns, Alderperson Majewski?
Nope, at this
Okay.
point.
All right. Anybody else before we go into the public hearing? All right, hearing none, we'll close the regular order of business and reopen for the public hearing. And I didn't have anyone signed up to speak, but if there's somebody on here that would like to speak to this topic, you can let me know now. And it's crickets, so we'll close the public hearing and then we'll reopen. And we are looking for a recommendation to the council on the zoning. If anybody would be inclined to make a motion, and if you want to, we'll certainly, like I said, take it back and talk about the walkway.
I'll make the motion to recommend it to council as long as Alder Majewski and I forget who else spoke about that, have their concerns addressed.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any more discussion? All right. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? And that motion carries. And thanks for bringing that up, Tom. Next item is number 7, and that's a request by Bob Dvorak for approval of a resolution to proceed with the urban service area amendment application for the proposed 51 West development area. And we'll be looking for a recommendation to council. Who would like to speak to this one tonight? Bob or somebody on your behalf?
I can speak. This is Steve Trumlett with MSA. Basically, we've been working on the 51 West subdivision, which you've seen in conceptual form. But part of this is the urban service area, which is in that area in the northwest portion of the city, does not extend into the area of that subdivision. In discussions with staff, we are also including some town lands around that property. I don't know, Michael, do you have map 3 available? That would make it easier. But you'll see that it includes 5 city parcels that makes up the subdivision that we're looking to move forward with, plus 15 town parcels. We've had initial review with CARPC, and we've made edits to that based on comments back from that, as well as the city. And we are waiting on providing stormwater modeling, which we did to the city and to Strand. That was kind of the last piece that we needed to provide to bring before Plan Commission potential recommendation to council on May 25th.
All right. Any questions at this point? So basically what we're trying to do is get something to CARPC for approval, and while we're working out some of the other items that are related for the plating and such. I think you've seen this a few times now. It hasn't changed a whole lot, but it's been tweaked a little bit to address the concerns as mentioned. Any questions or comments? Here and none, I would entertain a motion for a recommendation to council.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to recommend to council.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. One last time for any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion does carry. Next item 8 is related. This would be preliminary plat. And we do have a need for a public hearing on this one as well, but somebody want to review the plat before we go into the public hearing?
I can speak to it a little bit. I'm like, as you mentioned, Mayor, we've seen this. It's in the same form. We changed the name of Dvorak Drive based on an existing street nearby, which is that east-west off of Oak Opening. The preliminary plat split into 2 sheets because it incorporates both sides of 51, 70 acres, providing a mix of residential and commercial lots on lot 16 and 17. You will be seeing potentially rezone and general development plan in a month or so, but this is kind of move forward with the lots. As noted, we've worked out having the 200-year storage and rate control with the plan we're showing you here with the stormwater locations, providing the park allotment, and we're meeting that requirement. So looking to move forward with the preliminary plat.
All right. Any questions or comments from the commissioners before we go into public hearing? All right, we'll close the regular meeting and reopen for the public hearing. And nobody was signed up for this one as well. Is anybody on the call that would like to speak to this topic? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll reopen for the regular business. And
Mayor?
we did have a,
Mayor,
and, oh, go ahead.
sorry, you're quick to the draw. I had a question, but I was muted and I didn't realize it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
More of an educational thing for me. Between outlots 4 and 5, there's a delineated wetland that's right in the middle of the, looks like a road right of way. Am I seeing that right?
Mayor, would you like me to speak to that?
Please.
Okay. We, in part of this process, we delineated 4 small, low-quality wetlands and have received DNR federal exemption to modify or fill those because they're not they do not run to a federally waters and they're in poor, not low quality. So there are one that you'll see on Oak Opening just north of to the south end here by lot 5 and 4 you mentioned. There's another one near lot 18. If you went to the second sheet, there's one in what is going to be the park land. And so all those have been approved for filling because of that.
So you're going to fill the one in the parkland also, correct?
Correct.
All right.
All right. Any additional questions? So we did have an internal staff meeting today, and Michael, can you kind of summarize it for me? We have, like I said earlier, we have a few things going on. We're trying to coordinate them. We wanted to have Rodney review this, but he's not available to do that right now. Go ahead, Michael.
Right, yeah, we're planning on just going through the public hearing, and then we're gonna have to do a in-depth staff review yet, and hopefully have a have a special meeting coming up here and within the next couple weeks.
So the idea would be is really, we don't have to take action tonight. We wanted to get it in front of you, get a chance to present. We do want to give staff the opportunity to review it. They're unable to do so because of things beyond our control. And then we would possibly have a special meeting and still have it line up with the other approvals, so it'll still meet the timeline that we're hoping to. As you heard, we have other things that we have to approve, and we think we can coordinate that all together, but it might require a special meeting, which would only be so far on this one item. Did you have any questions or comments on anything else that you saw in this that you'd want us to address when we do the staff review?
Is that at anyone, Mayor?
Sure.
I don't know if the drawing is going to be specific to what we're going to look at, but but I remember a few points Alder Majewski brought up earlier while we were looking at this, and like some of the outlot stormwater areas being a little bit less squarish.
Yeah, I know they did change some of them, but I don't know if they were able to change them all. Did you want to speak to that?
Sure, Mayor. We do see there's potential for more minor tweaks, specifically doing some landscape features, probably around oak opening. We're kind of restricted along 51 with a 50-foot setback. You're not allowed to put anything in that zone. There was discussion about potentially making one of the wet ponds on the east side conducive for fishing, which, if we go that direction, would probably allow for more variation in the edges of the ponding, but it may also require more land, and we would obviously have to dig deeper to make it safe. So I guess I would entertain discussion on that. That interest would obviously impact parkland, but one could say if we're adding fish in a pier, that becomes a recreational pond as well. So that was brought up by Dan from Parks, and so that's something on the table that is willing from Bob's side, potentially understanding that there's some cost involved and impact to parkland ratio.
Any of the commissioners have any thoughts on that one? And we could certainly bring more specifics back on that when we have that next meeting to take action on this, if you'd like.
I think I would actually like a little more clarity on how that would work, especially with, impact to the parks and what would be necessary to make those workable as a fishing amenity. Since I'm not really familiar with how that would work, I'd be curious.
Okay. Did I hear somebody else?
That was me, Mayor. I was just saying I'd like to see some more details also.
All right. You looking for like the depth or size or shape or anything in particular?
Yes.
Sure.
You got me again. All right. We'll certainly try to bring back some options, and we have to talk to Dan about what his vision is out there as well. So we'll bring that back, and then, like I said, we'll probably be asking to take action on this and then some other things, and try to get it all to the council at the same time is our goal. And we think we have a path to do that. Any last questions on this tonight?
Mayor, do we have to make a motion to table this?
You could certainly make a motion to postpone it if you'd like. And then,
I'll move to table this until staff has a chance to review it.
all
I'll
right.
second.
Okay, and then just so you know, there is a window that we have to meet statutorily, and we're aware of that. And that would be the reason why we'd have to have this special meeting. And we would try to do it on an off night when there isn't anything else going on. And we have a couple ideas in mind, so we'll send you out that date. Otherwise, motion to a table is not open for debate. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Thanks for being here tonight, guys.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is a request by a forward development group for approval of a specific implementation plan SIP for 2501 Jackson. And this one will look familiar. We talked about it last month. Commissioners, you provided what I thought was some really good feedback to the developers. They're here tonight to review the changes that they've made, and would like to speak from Forward Development Group or JSD.
Yeah, good evening, Michael. Connor Kearney, Forward Development Group here. I can give a high-level overview of the updates made since the Plan Commission has looked at this. I believe it was the April 12th meeting. As Michael stated, there were a great deal of comments that really what we believe helped the project and resulted in an overall better feel, better looking building and better site design. Just to outline some of those changes that were a result of the Plan Commission's comments. You know, first off, we did add facade variation to that northern elevation of the building. We've added numerous windows to that northern elevation, specifically in that central space and central tenant suite. And it creates a more visually appealing facade of that building as you transition from the commercial center to the phase 2 residential area. So we also felt that adding the facade material variation and those windows in specific added a little bit more of a natural light penetration for that central suite, making that a bit more marketable to future tenants. Second, we relocated the proposed patio to the northeast end of the building, which can be seen on the site plan. We thought that was a great comment from Plan Commission to really activate that intersection of Jackson Street and Kettle Park Way, playing off of the True by Hilton Hotel, the senior living, all the really creating that pedestrian connection to this site from the rest of the development. We thought shifting that patio was a great idea and think it really laid out well. We did have to work with that restaurant tenant to kind of shuffle their space internally. They had everything designed, but they were able to accommodate another access point in that part of the building and kind of rework their back of house, if you will, to accommodate that. And third, to kind of further exemplify that, the shifting of that portion of the site, we did add additional sidewalk connections to that relocated patio to connect across Jackson Street. And in doing so, we had to shift the proposed monument sign. We shifted it slightly closer to Jackson Street frontage, so we didn't block any views of the building and the patio from that intersection, which was also a comment from the last April 12th Plan Commission meeting. And then lastly, we shifted that proposed transformer pad on the north end of that elevation a little further west to provide more of a buffer between that patio space for the tenants. So, we a lot of these changes we felt were to the benefit of the project, and we like where things have ended up. We did want to touch on another change that was brought up, or a comment that was brought up at the previous Plan Commission meeting, and it was regarding overall site layout and some building rotation exploration. It did want to touch on that. It is brought up in the memo as well, but we evaluated that and did a number of scenarios and could not find any adjustments that would work for the overall tenant mix. The building and the site itself is designed very specifically to accommodate the tenants that are signed up to lease in this building. So, that's obviously noted by the loading area on the west end of the building and the drive-through on the east end of the building. It's to change the site at this point in the ball game, I think would be a deal breaker for the tenants first off, and second, any dramatic changes would be in violation or would not be consistent with the original GDP that was approved for this project. So I think, to kind of hammer it home, we did try to design within the what was set forth in that original GDP. And we feel that the way the site's designed, combined with the comments from the plan commissioners and the changes that we've made to the site plan layout, we do feel like we have the best product to put forward here today, and we're excited about the project. So I do have Kevin Yeska with JST Professional Services with us tonight here as well, if there's any specific questions that you'd like to touch on, but myself and Kevin would be open for any questions from the commissioners as well. Thank you.
All right, who wants to be first?
Go ahead, Todd.
I will, a couple things. First, I think this is definitely an improvement. Just a couple clarification questions. Off that patio that's shown here on the picture that's on the screen, can I enter that commercial space from the north? That's an operable door that will actually get me inside the restaurant. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, and we wanted to maintain that connection. The patio is a nice feature, but without direct internal connection to the building, we felt wouldn't be using that space best. So we worked with that tenant for them to provide that. That was the shuffling of that interior space with that tenant. So that is an internal access point as well. Yes.
Excellent. And then looking at the facade rendering, it looked like there might be a second entry point that's being provided on the north now, besides just employee access to the dumpsters, or is this the only essential commercial access point is through the patio terrace here into the restaurant space, or is there another one somewhere else in the building on the north side?
Yeah, I mean, we do have back of house exits for those other tenant spaces, but really the internal layout and the parking, that's meant to be the main entrance for these tenant spaces. So really the only pedestrian, I guess, entrance to the building would be that one you're showing in this northeast end of the building adjacent to the patio. I think the rest would just be simply operational, with the main entrances to the building on the south end adjacent to the parking areas.
All right. And then I guess just as a commissioner, and maybe not just necessarily a question for you, but just in our role, because when I look at, I appreciate you guys saying that the GDP from years ago that was approved had this particular building orientation, and so that we should be somehow held to that original building orientation. But when I'm looking at your attachment B, it also shows that there was a second building on this site. And we're not requiring that you build that other building because things change. So I guess as a commissioner, I'm just wondering how much we actually have to be held to former GDPs and how much there's flexibility, because this is in general a concept for us commissioners, or is this something that is a requirement that we uphold?
I don't know, Michael, if that was directed toward, question to staff.
I think it's more toward the mayor and staff.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, I don't know that answer. That might even be, a question for Attorney Dragney. I guess, that's something we can talk about, especially, as we look at future development on some of the other lots. On this particular one, hopefully, they've addressed, the major concerns that you had, other than, repositioning the building, but that would be a good answer to understand.
Well, I think it just helps commissioners know that when they're looking to approve a GDP, that even though we're not approving site plan, you're essentially locking yourself into something that could be 3-4 years down the road.
Right.
Which, I think is something that commissioners should be cautious of, if that's truly the case. I certainly understand how if we've already had conversations with tenants about this building orientation and everything else, it makes things problematic from a development perspective. And I'm not trying to be difficult. So I will say, I think all this is an improvement. So I do appreciate particularly the patio terrace area and at least that one access point from the north. I guess I'd be happier if there was at least one other into some of the other retail spaces. But that it definitely is an improvement. Thank you.
All right.
Through my experience, most of the GDPs, there isn't a whole lot of change from the GDP to the SIP typically. This is a somewhat unique in that this GDP was approved quite a while ago and then reapproved. So, you know, they did remove one of the buildings in the original GDP, but generally they seem to follow the GDP pretty close to the SIP.
You know, we'll definitely follow up and we do need to understand that, you know. Alderperson Majewski, did you have some questions or comments as well?
My comments mirror Commissioner Bardman's. I'm just happy that they've done what they've done. It's definitely an improvement, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Any other commissioners have thoughts or comments?
I agree with all of the above in there. I think that pedestrian facing side or toward the hotel and the senior living facility is a much better improvement.
Excellent. And so this is a SIP, which means basically, you know, the Plan Commission has the authority here to make the decision. So at this point, I would entertain a motion.
Not sure of the wording, but I'll move to approve the SIP.
That works for me. Is there a second?
Second that.
All right. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Nice job, everyone, on that one.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Swadley.
All right, item 10 is proposed amendments to the zoning code to allow mobile food vending on private property as a temporary use and to clarify regulations for general temporary outdoor sales regulations. This one we're all familiar with. Attorney Schneider is with us tonight. Did you want to do a quick overview of where we're at on this one?
Yeah, I can do sort of a reminder of what this is. So overall, this particular ordinance, it amends the existing temporary use category of general temporary outdoor sales, and it creates two new categories related to mobile vending specifically. One related to mobile vending generally throughout the city, and then creates a temporary use for mobile vending specifically at commercial events that are licensed by the city. And then it creates a zoning administrator approval process for the temporary use categories throughout the zoning code. How this version of the ordinance differs from the version that you saw last time is that this particular version provides that drive-through facilities are not permitted for any of these three new use categories.
Are there any questions or comments from commissioners at this point?
Yeah, I guess I just to make sure I'm clear on what's transpired since our last meeting. I thought that we had discussed at the end of during the last meeting, it was in the minutes that we were going to do some sample site plans for accommodating or potentially accommodating drive-throughs. And we're going to evaluate based on some of those samples submitted. Do we make a shift here and just decide not to allow them at all?
I think with our discussions with staff and with the police chief, with the issues we've been having with existing drive-through establishments, I think at this time we were just looking at these as a temporary use, and I don't think the police chief and others are not really in favor of creating more safety issues. So I think that's where we're at. We did get a plan today from Phil Harrison that we can show you. It's a new plan that we could show you and see what he's proposing for Pick and Save.
Well, I think since we had asked them to submit it, I think I'd like to at least look at, I understand why it does make some sense to go this direction, but I guess I just want to make sure, since we gave the impression we'd at least evaluate based on looking at a sample or two of what a site plan might look like, trying to accommodate drive-throughs. I'd like to at least see it if you got it.
Right. Yep. We just got it today.
Yeah, we received it today, and I can tell you, I went back through and looked at, ordinances, and I still can't find one where on a temporary use, they're allowing a drive-through, and it's because of public safety issues. And so then I did reach out to the police chief, and he had been already communicating at our leadership meetings that we've had some issues, especially during COVID, with some of the drive-throughs that currently operate. And you might have witnessed that yourself, where, we've had lines that are backed up into the right of way, which creates, issues. And so he was really hesitant to move forward with any on these temporary use permits. It looks like Michael has the map up here right now.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is really the only example that we received. And as Michael stated, we did receive it today. And, you can see the challenges, from a layout perspective, and why we really believe that it's really difficult to really allow a drive-through to operate safely in this type of situation. I don't know if you commissioners, do you have any thoughts or comments about this particular one, but this is the only example we have right now.
Yeah, I'm digesting it for a minute here.
I know at least over the weekend and at some other times during the weeks, I've taken just kind of a drive through on the parking lot in that area just to get a feel for what traffic has been on different days and at different times. And that particular area in which they're looking in always seemed to be, it was a little crazy. Sometimes with the way that if certain vehicles, tall vehicles, are parked toward the back of that, it makes visibility fairly difficult, especially with coming around where the Starbucks is going to be. That made it particularly challenging to both watch for pedestrians, moving traffic among larger vehicles.
So I know, Mayor, you and I talked a little bit too about, well, I think, and maybe Michael, you and I might have mentioned this in an exchange about how other businesses that have drive-throughs, there are actual physical modifications that typically have to be made, such as with curbs or curbing, physical curbing, separation, certainly striping changes and other things for safety perspectives. And I think that's difficult to do it for a temporary permit to make more permanent kinds of modifications. And so I can understand the challenges here, and certainly I appreciate the sample that has been provided. But I can see where this would be very difficult for staff to be able to evaluate, because we're just showing the direction of traffic and where the cart sits, but it doesn't show anything about changes in striping, signage, doesn't show physical modifications to separate. And I could find all kinds of concerns I'd have here about where pedestrians are going to be having to walk across and everything else. So I guess I'll say thank you for this submittal, but I understand the reason why we're just evaluating, just saying no to all drive-throughs.
Yeah, it's difficult because I know I did some research on stacking spaces and widths and distances and turnaround radiuses and, just watching traffic. And this particular area, as Brett mentioned, already has challenges even without anything there. I was there earlier today and just watching how people drive and cut across, and yeah, it's just a difficult situation. And if you could look at, some of the other regular drive-throughs, you can see there are barriers and curbs and spacing and things that are, built around really the site plan. So, it's not because of a lack of effort, or it's just really difficult. And I don't know if Attorney Schneider, if you had anything that you saw, or, I mean, we had some conversations as well, if anything that you wanted to add.
Well, I think the only other thing that we talked about is that the way this is regulated under the current zoning code is that it's generally in-vehicle sales are either granted as a conditional use, which means this needs to go through the conditional use permit process, or an accessory use to a principal use. And neither of those zoning categories make much sense in connection with a temporary use. And so that's sort of another reason why we've landed in this space, is sort of a uniform regulation that would apply more broadly to the more typical mobile vending circumstance. Not just looking at the one example that we're aware of, but trying to think about mobile vending in a variety of contexts.
Any other thoughts or comments from commissioners? So we're looking for a recommendation to City Council. Is somebody prepared to make one?
I'll make the motion to recommend to council.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
I think we've done a really tremendous amount of work around this and tried to come up with the best solution possible. I think this one will work for the time being, and if there are things that we need to modify with it, that's kind of why we've got a review process in here. So it is as it is, and we intend it as it is, but if there are better ways to do it in the future, then we can certainly entertain those.
All right, anybody else have any comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries, so that'll be on for City Council in a couple of weeks. It's an ordinance, so it'll be there at least once, possibly twice, for a second reading. Any future agenda items from anyone? Anything from you, Michael?
Well, we'll have some, the GDP and rezoning for the 51 West. I'll expect some platting coming for Isham Street. That's about it for now.
Okay. And then we'll let the commissioners know if we end up having to have that special meeting. It'll be at least toward the end of May, if not the first weekend in June, I think is what we discussed, right, Michael?
Right, yeah.
And we'll talk to the developers and see how they're progressing as well. We won't have it if we don't need to, but if we want to keep everything moving together, then we'll let you know the date and hopefully we can get a quorum. I think that's all we had for tonight. I'd entertain a motion.
One last, Mayor,
Oh,
can I ask
yes.
one last question?
Yep.
It just occurred to me, has there been discussion yet on when these meetings might potentially go back to face-to-face?
We've had some discussions. Certainly the Plan Commission is kind of its own deal, separate from the council by statute. The Community Affairs Council Policy Committee, which will meet the first Tuesday, I believe it is, in June, they're going to have a conversation. They're working with Rachel right now, actually, to determine things like, how will we handle it? We do have a policy at the council that allows it to either be virtually, hybrid, or in person. And one of the things that we're trying to understand is if it's a public meeting, if we can limit the number of people in the council chambers, because, we still have to be able to, at least for now, until the order changes, practice social distancing.
Sure.
And we're not really sure how that's going to work out if we get a large group like we had tonight. We might be over our capacity in there, and we certainly want to be safe and accommodating. I can sense that at least it sounds like you want to get back to in-person meetings.
I think they in general work better. I'm surprised at how well they've worked overall. But I think some of our conversations and discussions, not only with people with proposals, but with our fellow commissioners, I think it's always better face to face. But I can certainly understand it might not be time yet.
Yeah, and I agree. And even with our internal meetings with developers, there is something to be said about being in person. So if you'd like, we could put that on as a future agenda item if you guys want to talk about it at the next meeting.
Mayor,
Yes.
a couple of things that I would like to see. I'd like to see a update and a review of what our standards are for expectations on trails in developments,
Okay.
so that we all know where we're standing on that when we start seeing these developments come in like we did tonight.
All right.
Number two, I'd like to get a review on parking lot issues. We were looking at the Starbucks, and we're looking at a temporary vendor in there, and as you said, it has issues. Are there things that the city can do to force the issue to improve that for safety reasons?
Okay.
Those are some of the questions that I have.
All right. We can do that as well. And if you have any specific ideas, if you want to just forward them to Michael, and then we can kind of keep a tally and make sure that we at least have an internal conversation and do some research before we throw it on the agenda, that'd be great.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Anybody else? All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. All right, good night, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.